The sound of Meredith Halston's boots echoed like gunshots down the cold concrete hallway of the municipal shelter. The bare walls bounced the noise back with eerie precision, creating a tunnel of dread. Inside the steel-barred kennels, the dogs cowered into corners, their instincts flaring. But only one didn't flinch because he'd already given up. His tag read, 72. A German shepherd with sunken posture, a trembling frame, and eyes that looked through the present like it wasn't worth seeing. They called him Bran. No one remembered who gave him the name, probably someone trying to make paperwork easier. Bran hadn't eaten in 2 days, though his food bowl had been filled. He didn't bark, didn't growl. He just existed, haunted and still. Every time a human came near, his body would fold inward, as if trying to disappear into himself. But today wasn't just feeding time. Meredith was carrying the bowl and a wooden control stick. Officially, for safety. Unofficially, Bran knew better. The stick clacked hard against the floor, scattering dry kibble across the concrete. Meredith's voice cut through the space, sharp and full of something too bitter to name. Bran didn't move. He stayed pressed to the back wall, his paws twitching involuntarily. The stench of fear was heavy now. Not just his, but soaked into the air around him. There was no fight in him, only memory. Memory of hands and voices and pain. Upstairs in the small security booth, Darian Kess narrowed his eyes at the black and white footage on the monitor. He'd been working at the shelter long enough to know when something felt off. And today felt wrong. He leaned closer to the screen. Meredith's posture wasn't firm. It was hostile. The way she leaned in, the tightness in her jaw, the tension in Bran's body. Something in Darian's gut twisted. He muttered under his breath, "Not again," and shoved back from his chair. As Darian moved swiftly down the hall, the echo of the stick striking concrete rang out again. Louder, faster. Bran flinched, not from the sound, but from the space between the next breath. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was the breaking of something sacred. Meredith's eyes didn't soften. If anything, she looked satisfied. And then Bran turned his head. Slowly, deliberately, his gaze found the small black camera in the top corner of the kennel. He stared into it as if he could see through it. And for a moment, just a second, his eyes locked with Darian's watching from above. And in that silent connection was a scream no one else could hear. If the story moved you from the start, hit the like button now. And don't forget to subscribe. We're so close to 100,000. Join our community and help us share powerful stories like Bran's. Voices that deserve to be heard. Darian's footsteps echoed down the corridor with growing urgency. He didn't want to cause a scene, not yet. Confronting another employee without proof could backfire. But something in Bran's eyes, it wasn't just fear. It was a plea. Darian had seen too many dogs broken in this place, turned into shells before anyone noticed. He'd fought hard to keep his job after speaking out once before. But this couldn't wait. He slowed as he neared the isolation wing, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Meredith was crouched beside Bran's kennel, tapping the stick against the bars in a slow, calculated rhythm. "Stupid mutt," she muttered under her breath, unaware someone was approaching. Bran trembled but didn't move. Darian stopped just outside her line of sight, eyes narrowing as he listened. He wanted to believe he was overreacting, that maybe she was just impatient, not cruel. But then she raised the stick slightly, not to touch the dog yet, just enough to make him flinch again. She smiled. Darian stepped forward. "Meredith," he called out, voice steady but firm. She jumped slightly, then turned with a wide, fake smile. "Oh hey Darian, just trying to get this one to eat. He's being stubborn." Her tone was light, sweet even, but her eyes held none of it. Darian gave a tight nod, then looked down at Bran. The dog had pressed himself so far into the back wall it looked painful. "Mind if I take over?" he asked. Meredith hesitated. "You sure? He's kind of a lost cause." Bran didn't blink as Darian knelt. The smell of fear was thick, sour, but Darian didn't flinch. He whispered softly, avoiding direct eye contact. "Hey buddy, it's all right. You're not invisible. I see you. No sudden movements. No noise. Just presence. Bran's ears twitched, the first movement in minutes. Meredith stood behind them, arms crossed, tapping her fingers against her thigh. He's just weird. Never seen a dog so broken. Darian didn't answer. Not yet. His focus was on Bran, whose eyes had shifted just barely, from panic to confusion. As Darian reached into his pocket and placed a few pieces of chicken on the ground, Bran didn't move, but he sniffed, a slow, cautious breath. Darian caught it, a sign of life, a spark. Then he stood, facing Meredith. He needs calm, not pressure. She shrugged, tossing the stick aside. Whatever works. But Darian wasn't buying it. Something was wrong, not just with the dog, but with her, and he was going to find out what. Later that evening, the shelter was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a cold, sterile glow across the walls. Most staff had gone home, and the dogs had quieted into uneasy slumber. Darian lingered in the office, the glow of the computer screen reflecting in his tired eyes. Something about Bran gnawed at him, not just the trauma, but the way Meredith had treated it like routine. He needed to understand what that dog had been through, and if the system wouldn't tell him, maybe the records would. He typed in Bran's intake number, 72, and waited as the digital file loaded. What opened on the screen wasn't just a standard report. It was a patchwork of scanned documents, police notes, and handwritten observations. The first image froze Darian in place. A body cam still frame. A house. Blood. The caption read, "Recovered during domestic incident. Owner deceased. Dog found guarding the scene." Bran wasn't just a stray. He had survived something horrifying. Something no animal should ever have witnessed. Scrolling further, Darian found behavior assessments dated from the first week Bran arrived. Unresponsive. Avoidant. Flinches at male approach, refuses to eat in presence of uniformed staff. The notes continued, each more damning. Returned by 2 adoptive families. History of pacing, trembling, silent staring. And at the bottom of the screen, a comment in red, "Not fit for public adoption without extensive rehabilitation. Consider long-term hold or transfer." That line hit like a gut punch. They'd given up on him. Officially, Darian leaned back in his chair, hand over his mouth. He'd worked at this shelter for 8 years. He'd seen dogs fight back from worse, but never alone. Never with a tag like unadoptable branding their future. And certainly not under the care of someone like Meredith. He remembered the look in her eyes that afternoon, the satisfaction, the dismissiveness, and now he understood Bran wasn't just broken. He'd been left to rot, and no one had bothered to ask why. A noise pulled him from his thoughts. A sharp creak from the hallway. Darian turned, heart jumping. It was after hours. The front doors were locked. He stood slowly and stepped into the corridor. Empty. But then a shadow moved just beyond the corner near the back kennels. He froze. "Hello?" he called, voice steady but tense. No answer. Only silence, and then the soft, dragging sound of something being pulled across tile. He moved forward cautiously, unsure if it was a dog, a person, or something else entirely. But what he saw next stopped him cold. Meredith, kneeling by Bran's kennel, and in her hand the stick again. Darian's breath caught in his throat. Meredith hadn't seen him yet. She was kneeling low, her body partially blocking the camera's view, her hand gripping the stick tightly. Bran was in the corner, frozen, eyes wide open but unfocused, as if his mind had gone somewhere far away to escape. The woman whispered something under her breath, her tone chillingly calm. Darian took a slow step forward, careful not to startle her. But something in him was already boiling. This wasn't discipline. This was cruelty, carefully hidden beneath silence and shadows. Meredith! His voice sliced through the hallway like a blade. She jolted, turning sharply, and for a split second her expression cracked. Surprise. Guilt. Then the mask came back, the practiced smile. "Darian," she said, slowly rising. "Didn't expect anyone else to be here." He kept his gaze locked on her. "Why do you have the stick again?" Her eyes darted toward it. "It's protocol," he growled. "I was just making sure he stayed calm." Darian didn't respond right away. He looked at Bran, who hadn't moved a muscle. Not even a twitch. "I watched the footage from earlier," Darian said quietly. He didn't growl. Not once. Meredith's smile faded. Her eyes sharpened. "You're going to question me over a dog that's been labeled unadoptable?" she snapped. "You don't know what these animals are capable of." Darian stepped closer, voice low and tight. "I know what humans are capable of, too." For a moment, the hallway was deadly silent. The kind of silence that comes right before something shatters. Meredith tossed the stick to the ground with a hollow clack. "Fine," she muttered. "You deal with him. Let's see how long you last." She brushed past him, shoulders stiff, footsteps echoing with sharp defiance as she disappeared into the shadows of the corridor. Darian didn't move for a few seconds. He waited until her presence faded completely, then knelt by Bran's kennel. "You okay, buddy?" he whispered. Still no response. But the dog blinked once, slow, deliberate. Darian exhaled. He sat there for a while, cross-legged on the cold tile floor, just watching the dog. No pressure, no talking, just presence. Eventually, Bran shifted, barely, paw stretching forward. It wasn't much, but to Darian it was the beginning of something. Something worth protecting, worth fighting for. He made a silent promise right then. Bran would not be forgotten. Not under his watch. But as he turned to leave, a chill ran down his spine. Taped to the inside of the kennel door was a folded piece of paper that hadn't been there before. And on it, in hurried, all-caps handwriting, "Some dogs are better off put down." Darian stared at the note, his pulse pounding. The handwriting was rough, hurried, like it had been written in anger, or worse, warning. He unfolded the paper, but there was nothing else. Just that single, brutal sentence. The air in the hallway felt heavier now. This wasn't just someone's opinion. It was a threat disguised as protocol. He glanced back at Bran, who had retreated to his corner again, his gaze vacant. Darian slowly folded the note and tucked it into his jacket. He'd deal with it later. For now, the dog came first. The next morning, he arrived earlier than usual. Meredith's car was already in the lot, though she hadn't signed in. Suspicious, but not surprising. Darian walked past the staff lounge and went straight to Bran's kennel. What he saw stopped him cold. The metal latch on the door had deep, erratic scratches. Too high and too jagged to be from a dog. It looked like someone had tried to tamper with it. His eyes scanned the hallway. No one in sight. He knelt and examined the door more closely. Tiny wood splinters clung to the latch's side. Meredith's stick. He didn't waste time. He printed a copy of the shelter security log and began digging into access times. What he found chilled him. After hours, every night for the past 3 days, someone had logged in under a staff ID that didn't match their schedule. The login belonged to Everett Sloan, a former employee who'd left 6 months earlier. The system hadn't flagged it. Either someone forgot to deactivate the credentials, or someone was using them. That afternoon, Darian called a contact, Marla Kinsey, a former animal welfare investigator who owed him a favor. She met him at a diner a few blocks from the shelter. He slid the note across the table. "Tell me I'm wrong," he said. Marla read it, her expression hardening. "You're not wrong," she muttered. "You've got someone inside that place who thinks euthanasia is a shortcut. Seen it before. But usually they're not stupid enough to leave notes." Back at the shelter, Darian kept his head down and his routine normal. He didn't confront Meredith. Not yet. Instead, he visited Bran every break he had. Quiet moments, soft conversation, warm pieces of cooked chicken hidden in his pocket. Slowly, Bran began responding. A lifted head, a wagless tail that barely moved, but moved nonetheless. The dog wasn't beyond saving. He just needed time, patience, safety. But that evening, when Darian returned to the kennel for a final check, he found something new. Scratched into the metal beneath Bran's water dish, with something sharp and deliberate, were 4 crooked letters. Help! Do you think Darian is dealing with someone dangerous inside the shelter? Who do you suspect more, Meredith? Or someone who hasn't even been revealed yet? And what would you do if you found the word help scratched into a dog's kennel? Drop your theory and share this mystery with someone who needs to see it. The scratched word haunted Darian long after the shelter's doors were locked. Help. It wasn't something a dog could have written, not even with years of training. Someone had been in that kennel. Someone who wanted to leave a message without being seen. He took photos of the markings and the latch damage, then emailed copies to Marla with a short note. This goes deeper. His gut told him this wasn't just neglect or a cruel volunteer. This was systematic, planned, and Bran was at the center of it. The next morning, Darian arrived early again. This time, he brought his own tools, a small camera with a motion sensor and a hidden audio recorder. He installed them discreetly near Bran's kennel, high in the corner behind a vent. It wasn't exactly legal, but he'd learned long ago that sometimes doing what's right doesn't follow the rules. As he adjusted the lens, Bran watched him silently from his corner, his gaze more focused now. No longer hollow, just cautious, wary but watching. Later that day, Darian walked into the archive room and dug through the older, paper-based intake records, the kind that never made it into the digital system. Bran's file was thin, but something inside didn't sit right. A handwritten note clipped to the back caught his eye. Owner, not applicable. Found on scene with body. Dog aggressive during recovery. But there was a smudge over the address. He squinted. The ink was faded, but barely visible was a name in pencil. Dr. Mason Kellett. Darian froze. Kellett. That name rang loud in his memory. A retired local veterinarian who'd vanished last year after a house fire. No foul play was confirmed, but rumors swirled. Drug involvement. Illegal experimentation. The fire was ruled accidental. But now Darian wasn't so sure. If Bran had come from that property, what had he seen? What had he been through? More importantly, who didn't want those answers coming to light? That night, the shelter was quiet again. Darian sat alone in his car across the street, watching. Midnight came and went. Then movement. The side door opened slowly. A figure slipped inside. Not Meredith, the frame was smaller, thinner. Darian cursed softly and grabbed his phone, switching to the live feed from his hidden camera. The screen flickered, then cleared. A hooded person was kneeling beside Bran's kennel. Their hands moved quickly, unscrewing the latch. Not to harm the dog, but to release him. Darian's heart pounded. He zoomed in just as the figure whispered something to Bran, then turned toward the camera, just for a second. Enough for Darian to see her face. It wasn't Meredith. It was someone he thought had left town for good. Darian's breath hitched as he stared at the paused frame. The image wasn't crystal clear, but there was no doubt in his mind. The woman opening Bran's kennel was Lily Harrow. She'd been a junior vet technician at the shelter a year ago, one of the kindest people he'd worked with. But after a heated argument with management about mistreatment of animals, she'd vanished without warning. No resignation, no goodbye, just gone. Rumors said she'd moved out of state. But there she was, on camera, unlocking the kennel of the most broken dog in the building. He didn't call the police. Not yet. Darian knew there was more to this than trespassing. Lily wasn't reckless. If she was here, in secret, under the cover of night, it meant she had reason to believe Bran was in danger. He rewound the footage, watching her movements again. She didn't try to take the dog. She whispered to him, comforted him, then gently retightened the latch, as if to make sure no one would notice. It wasn't a rescue attempt. It was a warning. She knew something was coming. The next day, Darian skipped protocol. He went to Marla Kinsey again, this time in person. "She's back," he said, sliding the flash drive across her table. Marla watched the clip in silence, her brows furrowed. Lily Harrow? I remember her. She filed 2 anonymous complaints about Meredith last year. Both were buried. Darian's stomach turned. Why? Marla shrugged. Shelters bury a lot of things, Darian, especially when budget cuts and bad press are on the line. But if Lily's willing to risk breaking in, She leaned in. Then someone's preparing to do something to that dog. Back at the shelter, Darian's nerves frayed with every passing hour. Meredith was unusually chipper, laughing with staff, staying visible, like she was overcompensating. He avoided her, choosing instead to focus on Bran. The dog now stood when Darian approached. Still quiet, still wary, but no longer lifeless. That night, after closing, Darian left a note near Bran's water bowl. Written in code only someone from the shelter's old staff would recognize. 9 p.m., North Gate, no cameras. He waited in the dark by the chain-link fence behind the building. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The wind howled softly through the nearby trees. Just as he began to think she wouldn't come, Lily stepped out of the shadows, hood down, eyes sharp but tired. "You shouldn't have called me," she said. "They're watching everything." Darian stepped closer. "What do you know?" She hesitated, glancing back toward the building. Then she whispered, "They're planning to put him down. Tomorrow. And it's not just Bran they're hiding." Darian felt the air leave his lungs. "Tomorrow?" he echoed. Lily nodded once, eyes full of urgency. "I saw the chart myself. Bran's name is marked for emergency behavioral euthanasia. No behavior review, no vet evaluation. Just a quiet disposal before anyone notices." She pulled a folded paper from her jacket and handed it to him. It was a photocopy of the intake board from the restricted admin terminal, the one only supervisors could access. Bran's ID, 72, was circled in red. Time listed, 6:30 a.m. "They do it before sunrise," Lily murmured. "Less questions. Meredith is pushing it through under Everett Sloane's old credentials. She's done it before Darian. Dogs with no one watching, no advocates. Just gone." Darian's hands clenched around the paper. His mind was racing, calculating options. Legal channels were too slow. If he called animal control now, they'd brush it off. He needed proof, and a plan that didn't give Meredith time to cover her tracks. Bran had hours left. Darian looked at Lily. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She looked away. "I tried. A month ago, I mailed you Bran's original trauma report. You never responded." His jaw tightened. He hadn't seen anything. Either the mail never arrived, or someone intercepted it. That meant someone knew Lily hadn't disappeared entirely, and that someone had been watching. "We can't wait," Darian said. "We get Bran out tonight." Lily hesitated. "It's not just him." She opened her phone and showed a list of 5 other dogs, all marked as aggressive, all with mysterious health flags, all scheduled within the next 3 weeks. "This is bigger than one dog," she whispered. "But he's the first they're rushing, and if we expose it, the others might have a chance." Darian nodded slowly. "Then we start with Bran." They agreed to meet again after midnight. Lily would handle disabling the side door alarm. Darian would get the van from the clinic's backlit, the one no one monitored anymore. Time was moving fast, and so was the danger. Hours later, Darian stood once more outside Bran's kennel. The dog stood alert now, sensing the shift in energy. "We're getting you out," Darian said under his breath. He opened the door carefully, placing a soft leash around the dog's neck. Bran didn't resist. He walked beside Darian in silence, each step heavy with trust he hadn't shown before. But as they turned the corner toward the back exit, Darian's phone buzzed. A message from Lily. 2 words. "She knows." Darian's blood ran cold as he read the message again. "She knows." His fingers tightened around the leash, and Bran felt the tension, slowing his steps. The hallway felt darker now, heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. He glanced behind him. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. But the silence was louder than ever. He crouched beside Bran, whispering, "We need to move fast, but quiet." The German Shepherd responded with a slow blink, calm but alert. A dog who had already survived hell and somehow understood the stakes. They slipped down the maintenance corridor, the one only staff knew. The lights were motion-triggered, and Darian stayed close to the edge, avoiding them. At the back of the shelter, The emergency door had already been unlatched. Just as Lily promised, he opened it carefully, peering into the night. The van was waiting across the gravel lot, engine off, barely visible in the fog. He began to cross with Bran, every step deliberate, every second stretching like a wire about to snap. Halfway to the van, a flashlight beam cut through the dark. "Hey!" a voice shouted. Darian froze. Meredith. She stood by the corner of the building, a walkie-talkie in one hand, a raised baton in the other. "Put the dog down, Darian. This doesn't have to get worse." Her tone was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes when someone knows they've already called backup. Behind her, another figure appeared from the shadows. A man Darian didn't recognize, but who wore the old shelter uniform and carried a set of keys. Bran growled low, ears flattening, body tensing for flight. Darian stepped between the dog and Meredith. "You're not putting him down," he said. "Not now. Not ever." Meredith laughed. Cold, joyless. "You're making a career-ending mistake. You think anyone will believe you? You broke protocol. You stole footage. You let a dangerous animal off-leash." The man beside her moved forward. "He's not dangerous," Darian growled. "He's traumatized. Because of people like you." Suddenly, Lily emerged from the van. "You want to play dirty, Meredith?" she yelled. "You forgot something." She held up her phone, screen glowing, live video feed. "We've been streaming everything to a private server. Audio, video, the euthanasia list, it's all backed up. Try anything, and the entire state's going to know what you've done here." Meredith's eyes darted between them, calculating. Bran stood still, pressed against Darian's leg. Waiting. There was a beat, long and bitter, and then Meredith hissed, "Get off the property, but this isn't over." Darian didn't flinch. "You're right. It's just beginning." They loaded Bran into the van, Lily already typing on her phone. Darian climbed into the passenger seat, heart still pounding. As they pulled away, Bran finally lay down, not in fear but in peace. For the first time since his intake, he closed his eyes. The road stretched out like a quiet ribbon beneath the wheels of the van, headlights cutting through the early morning fog. Neither Darian nor Lily spoke at first. The weight of what they had just done hung between them. In the back, Bran slept curled into himself, his body finally at rest, breathing slow and even. Darian glanced at him through the rearview mirror and felt something tighten in his chest. Relief, rage, gratitude, all tangled into one ache that refused to go away. They didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, they drove 2 hours north, to a privately funded rehabilitation center for abused animals, Pine Hollow Sanctuary. Lily had arranged everything in secret days before. "I knew they were circling him," she explained. "I just didn't think they'd move so fast." The sanctuary director, a grizzled woman named Mara Felden, met them at the gate. She took one look at Bran, still asleep in the back, and simply said, "We've got him now. No clipboard, no judgment, just care." The sun began rising behind the hills as Darian and Lily stood outside the van. Bran stepped down slowly, uncertain, ears twitching at the sounds of birds and distant horses. He sniffed the ground, then looked up, not at the humans but at the open field just beyond the gate. The moment was small, simple, but when he took a single step forward, unprompted and unafraid, it felt like thunder in Darian's chest. That single step meant everything. Days passed, then a week. Bran began walking on his own, tail loose instead of tucked, appetite returning. He barked once, just once, at a passing goat, and Darian, watching from the porch, laughed for the first time in what felt like years. Lily stayed in touch with the whistleblower network, and within 2 weeks, an investigation into the shelter had begun. Marla forwarded the report to Darian. Meredith was suspended pending criminal review, and several dogs on the euthanasia list were being reevaluated. The system hadn't crumbled. Not yet, but it cracked. And sometimes, a crack is enough to let light in. 1 month later, Darian returned to Pine Hollow with a decision made. He knelt beside Bran in the grass, stroking behind the dog's ear. "What do you think, boy?" he murmured. Ready to come home? Bran didn't move. He simply leaned his full weight against Darian's leg and let out a deep, contented sigh. That was his answer. No tail wag, no tricks, just trust finally fully given. Darian adopted Bran officially that afternoon. No ceremony, no cameras, just a signed paper and a quiet promise that whatever had been taken from Bran would never be taken again. If the story moved you, leave a like. It shows you care about stories that deserve to be heard. And if you want to see more emotional journeys like this one, where lives collide and hidden truths are revealed, subscribe to the channel now. Hit the bell so you never miss a chapter that just might change your day.